What's going on, guys? I'm Combat Craig, and today I'm going to give you some valuable VA claims that you should consider filing. The first one on the list is GERD. GERD is a condition in which gastric acid and partially digested food flow up from the stomach into the esophagus. Here are some symptoms of GERD: heartburn, nausea and regurgitation, pain in chest or abdominal pain, anemia, difficulty swallowing or painful swallowing, respiratory problems, vomiting, ulcers. What causes GERD? One thing is medications. Some of the medications that you are taking or were prescribed for your service-connected disability may cause GERD. Here are the different ratings for GERD. You have a 10% rating, a 30% rating, and a 60% rating. GERD is a valuable VA claim because the likelihood of you getting a 30% rating is pretty high, and a 30% rating will move the needle on your claim. The next claim on the list is something one of my boot camp members is going to file, and that is a valuable VA claim for radiculopathy. What is radiculopathy? It's a condition that occurs when the nerves in the spinal cord are damaged, irritated, or compressed. This is a really good secondary claim if you have problems with your spine. VA ratings for radiculopathy depend on how your nerve is impacted. Is it paralysis of the nerve, neuritis, or neuralgia? If you have cervical radiculopathy, you're going to be rated under diagnostic code 8510, 8610, and 8710. For lumbar radiculopathy, the diagnostic codes you're looking for are 8520, 8620, and 8720. The bilateral factor is huge in a radiculopathy claim, and you can get a rating in each leg. So you can get 10 or 20% in the left leg and 10 or 20% in the right leg, and that's what makes radiculopathy a valuable VA claim. VA claims for asthma are also a good way to go if you're looking to file valuable VA claims. The VA rates asthma based off the following: forced expiratory volume or forced vital capacity. The VA looks at additional information to determine the severity, but the VA rates asthma under 38 CFR 4.97, its diagnostic code 6602, and the ratings range from 0% to 100%, which makes this an extremely valuable VA claim to file if you have asthma. VA claims for sleep apnea are another solid way to go. I will tell you that sleep apnea claims are a little tricky if you didn't get diagnosed in service. And if you have both asthma and sleep apnea, you'll get a higher rating for asthma, and your likelihood of winning it is a little bit higher, but let's look into the rating criteria. Sleep apnea is a potentially serious sleep disorder in which a person's breathing is repeatedly interrupted. I have sleep apnea, and this is what happens to me. You're going to need a current diagnosis and symptoms and a nexus. You need all three of these for every single claim you file. What trips a lot of veterans up is you get the sleep study by the VA and they will give you a CPAP machine, so you have the diagnosis covered and the symptoms covered, but the nexus is the tough part with sleep apnea claims. The VA rates sleep apnea from 0 to 100%. If you have a CPAP machine, it's an automatic 50% rating. If you do not have a CPAP machine and you experience daytime hypersomnolence, which is sleepiness, causes you to fall asleep while you're driving, serious stuff like that, that's typically a 30% rating. And then if you don't have any symptoms, like with all VA disabilities, you'll get rated at 0%. VA claims for mental health are also valuable. The ratings go from 0 to 100, and it's based on your levels of social and occupational impairment. You can only have one mental health rating. You can have multiple disabilities, but you're only going to end up with one rating. So if you have a rating for, say, major depressive disorder at 30%, in order to increase your mental health rating, it depends on your level of social and occupational impairment. With a 30% mental health rating, you have occupational and social impairment with occasional decrease in work efficiency. And if you should be in the 70% category, which means you have occupational and social impairment with deficiencies in most areas, then you need to file for an increase and you need to prove that you deserve an increase. It's okay to have multiple mental health ratings. I have 5 of them myself personally, but you only get rated for the highest one. In my case, it's combat PTSD. If you already have major depressive disorder and you're thinking about filing a claim for anxiety with the hopes of increasing your rating, that's not a very good way to go because you're only going to get 1 rating. I would focus on increasing the mental health rating you already have, not adding in more different disabilities into your mental health. VA claims for chronic fatigue syndrome. Personally, I have a 60% rating for chronic fatigue syndrome. We'll look into the rating criteria, but this is a claim that pushed me over the top for sure. This got me 100%, and I also got permanent and total. I can tell you that if you're a Gulf War veteran, this will play to your advantage. So if you're a Gulf War veteran, you definitely want to take a look at chronic fatigue syndrome. How the VA rates chronic fatigue syndrome. You can get a 10%, 20, 40, 60, or 100% disability rating for chronic fatigue syndrome. It's broken down by incapacitation or how much your daily activities are restricted by the chronic fatigue syndrome. So you get a 20% rating if your daily activities are restricted by 25% of the pre-illness levels. A 60% rating, which is what I have, is your daily activities are restricted to less than 50%. And it goes on to say that you have periods of incapacitation of at least 6 weeks throughout the year. So you need to have 50% restriction and 6 weeks in order to get a 60% rating. Syndrome is often associated with Gulf War illness. Gulf War illness is not a diagnosis in itself, but it falls into a group of symptoms and disabilities that are often associated with Gulf War illness. Chronic fatigue syndrome is one of them. So some of the things they're going to be looking for are, were you in the Persian Gulf War between August 2nd, 1990 and February 28th, 1991? I was in that time frame. I'm also a combat veteran. I also have some of these environmental hazards, prevalent symptoms demonstrated by Gulf War veterans. I have some of these things as well. You should also be aware of the basic eligibility according to the VA's definition of the Persian Gulf War, the different countries that are out there, and then also the benefit amounts and disability ratings for Gulf War illness. Again, it's not a diagnosis in itself, but chronic fatigue syndrome is often associated with it. Let me jump in here real quick and tell you about my boot camp. If you want to learn more about the VA claims process, check out my boot camp. You can talk to me live. There's a link on the website and in the description, combatcraig.com. And also, if you need medical evidence like a nexus or documenting your symptoms properly, go to our website, combatcraig.com, and it says medteam/nexus letters. Click on that link, fill out the form, boom, you're done.